You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
So our current mayor in Seattle, Mayor Jenny Durkin, you may have heard that name during Chop and Chaz just a little bit. Yeah, once or twice. She decided not to run for re-election. So we've got kind of this wide open mayor race. One of the interesting things about this race is if the Seattle mayor's race is any guide, defund the police has lost its steam. How do we know that? Because they're not really talking about, let's go down the road of defunding the police further. And I've been a big opponent of defund the police from the get-go because it just, if you want to put some money into community services, that is fine. But when you're in a situation or you want to put some money into things that help out, future crime and that kind of stuff, that's fine. But when you're in an environment where crime is rising and you've already got police officers retiring, quitting, leaving, going to other police forces where they're, feeling more wanted, that's not the time to be defunding and kind of just, we hope that defunding the police and taking that money and creating those other things, we hope this will work. It's probably not the time to be doing that. And I've kind of said that right from the beginning because it just doesn't make any sense. This is one of those big political reactions. Defund the police, right? All right. So it's very clear with the race now. In fact, it's very clear that defunding is like, God, can you imagine people were saying that? We need to fund the police. That's literally how much this has turned around. There's also another storyline within the article I'm going to read that you're going to really like. So I hope you stay tuned. If you're new, my name is Sean Reynolds. Welcome. I own 2 real estate companies. I own a real estate appraisal company. I own a real estate brokerage. And I read the news that hopefully you want to hear. All right, let's jump in. So if the mayor's race is any guide, defund the police, not so much. Last summer, this time, so much. We were in the heart of it. And actually, now that I think about it, today is the day that CHOP, when I'm recording this, on the 1-year anniversary of when CHOP was disbanded. I was on the ground as the helicopters were overhead. The police were just doing their sweep. They had their big vehicle, their like assault vehicle. I want to say it's like the brown bear or something. I can't remember what the term they have for it, but they were marching through. There's like 100 police officers, like shoulder to shoulder, marching through, clearing things out, squaring things away. Should have been done long time. Should have been done the day after CHOP happened. But that's not how it went down. The summer of love was the summer of love until it wasn't. And then July 1st, 2020, things got cleaned up. Well, let's get back to this article, and it's by Danny Westneat, Seattle Times. One thing shined through pretty clearly when the Seattle mayoral candidates debated Tuesday. And no, it wasn't who would be the best choice to try to manage our, I like this term, ungovernable city. That's funny. It was that defunding the police is on the run. It's on the run. This is not a concept that is gaining traction. It's on the run. I was watching Lori Lightfoot talk about how she was trying to skirt the issue from a Newsweek reporter who was basically just telling her how bad crime was increasing in Chicago. And she had a bunch of stats that kind of said, we got these businesses coming in and we got this. And so, your whole thing about increasing crime is just not the case. And then the reporter was like ripping off stat after stat, situations that happened. Well, what about all the people being killed and murdered? What about all the people murdering each other? Do you have any, do you feel the need to offer them an apology at all? And the mayor was just basically stonewalling the fact that there's all of this violent crime going on. And to be honest, a few of the statistics in Chicago, I looked them up. Some of the statistics year over year have decreased because a year ago, July 1st, we were in the heart of the pandemic and things were really bad then. Things were really taking off. Now we're a year later. Some of the crime stats in Chicago have dropped, but the shootings and the murders, across the United States, those are on the rise. We know that. That's a thing. And so people, it's much more difficult to throw out we should defund the police when you're in a situation where crime is rising, right? So I think all the way around the whole defund the police concept, it's had its day. And then people are like, maybe that wasn't the best call. We need to refund the police. And by that, not give back money, but put some money into the police department, right? And police departments across the United States. None of the 6 candidates who appeared at Tuesday's forum openly endorsed cutting the police budget, let alone by 50%, as majority of the Seattle City Council had endorsed during the civil rights protests last summer. Remember Chop and Chaz right on the sign? Got a bunch of videos of that. Defund the police by 50% now. I always thought of that and thought, that's like a kindergartner just going, I want my dessert now. But it's in reference to they don't want, for the whole police violence thing, they want it contained now. And I get that, but the defunding the police, probably not the way that you're going to get there. And I've said all along that by defunding the police, the communities that you're going to hurt the most are the communities that already have the most violence. And those are typically the communities of color. And so by defunding the police, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more here in this article, because I think there's some kind of points made by one of the candidates that are wildly obvious that just don't get a lot of mention in major media because it doesn't really go with the narrative of, defunding the police is a great idea. Let's give that a run and see how it works. Well, we have been defunding the police and we have seen how it works. And I got to be honest, it not swimmingly. Oof, no go. A number of candidates campaigned openly that what Seattle really needs now is more cops. Huh. Shocking. Is that really a thing? Candidates are saying more cops? A year ago, it was all police are bad. ACAB, right? ACAB. You saw that just graffitied everywhere. Oh, defund the police, ACAB. This is the greatest thing ever until it's not. Kind of like Chop and Chaz. Until it's not, right? So Seattle really needs right now is more cops, which is quite a political shift from a year ago. It only took a year to figure that out. Oh, yeah. Crime going up. Fewer cops to take care of the crime going on. That's not the city we want to live in. And you know what's been crazy is the mayors of both Seattle and Portland, and even President Biden has been he's been pretty hard-lined about defunding the police. Not such a good concept. I support you here, but the one place that's a hard no-go is defunding the police. Because even though some of these leaders are, they're further on the left side than you or I probably are, they understand that when you have fewer cops on the ground, crime doesn't just take a break. Crime doesn't take a holiday. Hey, there's fewer cops. Probably not going to get in trouble. Let's just take it easy and let's just kick back and, look at our IRAs and look at our 401ks and just contemplate our futures. No, that's not the way it works, right? I think the pendulum has swung against defund the police, one candidate, Lance Randall, said after the debate had ended. You can see it in these forums. The people used to talk about it either don't talk about it anymore or are now actively backpedaling. Hey, you said defunding the police was a good idea. Oh, well, it was more of a social concept. We didn't really mean it. It was more of just some words we put together, and it was a slogan for what we meant. We didn't really want to defund the police. Not really. We support our police officers, right? When you're backpedaling, that's exactly what you say. A bunch of nonsense. Like, I said that, but, back the blue. Crazy. Randall stole the show at a bit. Randall stole the show a bit at this forum hosted by the Downtown Seattle Association when he told about how he'd been shot at by thieves just this past Saturday in his Rainier Beach neighborhood. This is the storyline that I think is really interesting. So I saw this story and I thought that is a little bit sensational. I try and stay away from like really sensational just because it doesn't, I feel like it doesn't really help things. I want to be able to do podcasts on stuff that I know. Hey, here's how it is. Here's how it should be. How can we get from point A to point B and talk about that? So the sensational stuff, it's kind of like, all right, I probably get a lot of views, but do I want to go down the roads of just some crazy stuff? And I kind of saw this one as a crazy storyline, but it fits into this narrative based on the some additional information we've got here. So Randall stole the show a bit at this forum hosted by the Downtown Seattle Association when he told about how he'd been shot at by thieves just this past Saturday in his Rainier Beach neighborhood. Rainier Beach is in South Seattle, and it has had some of the greatest rises in gun violence and shooting and murder of any of the neighborhoods in Seattle. It just has. It is that kind of neighborhood. As first reported by Como News on Monday, Randall had been awakened at 4 a.m. by the sound of mechanical sawing. Where do you think this is going? What direction do you think this is going? Catalytic converter, maybe? Possibly? I don't know. On the street outside, two people were cutting out a parked car's catalytic converter. Randall went out and tried to get the license plate of the thief's car, but they spotted him and then fired 5 shots, some in the air and some at him as they sped away. This is a candidate for the Seattle City Council, right? Randall had crouched behind his own car. His headrest absorbed 1 bullet. Bullet went into his car, got stuck in a headrest. Think about that. Randall is African American, so it hit home harder when he then upbraided the city council and some of the other candidates for purporting to speak for minority communities about this issue. We've had several forums, and I feel as though there's an assumption that people of color do not want police officers in their neighborhoods to protect them, Randall said. We need police officers. That's what this candidate is saying, who just got shot at. We need police officers. Do I need to read that again? Probably not. You get the picture, right? And I think most of us agree. Hey, if you got crime increasing and you got stuff going on, you don't need fewer officers. Well, let's just see how this works out. Let's clear out 50% of our officers, and I think it'll be fine. You know what? Let's go a step further. Let's just get rid of them all, and we'll just see how that goes. And you've all heard people, doing YouTube on that. What would happen if we literally abolish the police? It would be chaos, absolute chaos, because there would be no reason for these criminals not to do their crime, would there? We're not going to get caught. Oh, hey, let's talk about that. Let's come up with a game plan. Go out, do our criming. Never have to be worried about being arrested. Ugh. That's not a world I want to live in. Do you? No. And that's what this guy is saying. That's what this candidate is saying. He's saying, hey, there's an assumption that people of color don't want police officers because that has been the mainstream media. And yet I think people of color are like, oh, no. The vast majority of people of color, they know there are issues with police brutality. We all know that. There are instances of that. So get some training, get that squared away, because you do need the cops one way or the other. And then then you've got majority of people, especially people in neighborhoods where this kind of thing is impacting them. They're like, yeah, we probably need some more police officers. And you read story after story after story about that, just kind of small comments where we need some more cops. And yet that isn't the big headline has been defund the police, without any real thought of what that means or how that gets enacted. Or, okay, you're going to take money away from the police. How are you going to make up for that lost manpower? And to be honest, throughout a lot of the police departments, they haven't even really had to defund the police because they're quitting voluntarily, they're retiring, they're basically taking themselves out, meaning you don't have to pay their salary. There's a whole bunch of those guys now and gals. You don't have to pay their salary. So it's like, well, what do we do with the money? That's kind of literally where we're at. After the debate, he elaborated, I guess I've grown weary of the city council and others in the city attempting to speak and act on behalf of Black people without asking and without considering the ramifications of some of these actions. Well, the city council has a storyline and a narrative that they want to see. And yet they're not, they're known for not really representing the people in their districts, right? Because I think a lot of the people in their districts, they don't want to see crime increase. They kind of want to see more police. They want to see their neighborhoods be safer. And if you have more police on the ground, guess what? Odds are you're gonna be safer. We have nightly shootings, he went on. As someone who was just in one of these shootings, I think I can say that this community desperately wants someone to respond when we call 911. Let's talk about that for a second. Every community wants somebody Johnny on the spot when you have a crisis. When you have a crisis, you call 911. The next thing is how long until the cops get here? How long until the cops get here? How long until they can start to do their thing, which we desperately need at this point in time, because you don't call 911 because your ice cream is melting, right? You call it when you need it, when it's something, something major. So all communities when you call 911, we want to have somebody there. It doesn't mean we don't want to reform the police. Yeah, that's a given. Or that we can't do violence prevention programs. Totally agreed. You can do those as well. But I think at the point we're at right now, we need to address the fact that a lot of these cities, Seattle and Portland included, they're understaffed as far as their police protection goes. And other alternative, and it doesn't mean that we can't do violence prevention programs and other alternative approaches. It means we need both. And that's kind of what I've said all along. That's a pretty reasonable approach. All right. You don't want to see the whole George Floyd thing happen anymore. Nobody wants to see that. But you can't have things going the way they've been going on an upward trajectory for murders, homicides, and violent crime, right? That's kind of a no-go as well. Already this year, Seattle has seen 220 shootings, which, if it continues, puts the city on track to break the record for most shootings in a year. Homicides had slowed a bit in the spring. There were 12 through May, about average for Seattle. But June so far has been one of the deadlier single months in Seattle crime history, with 10 killings this month through June 28th. Every time I turn around, every few days it feels like, and with, what do we say? With 10 through June 28th in a month, it's like every couple of days you're reading about a murder. It's crazy. We had a 4-person shooting with one person that died 2 days ago. Somebody got shot yesterday. It's just every single day, just about, you're like, oh, that's not good. Well, good thing we were trying to defund the police because, and then you just don't really have a reason for where that logic would go, right? This comes as nearly 300 officers have quit the city's force. It may not be related to the cops are down while crime's going up, but it's definitely shifting the debate. I think there is some correlation there. It's just you can't put 100% of it on there. If you're a criminal and if you are at that point where you're going to, you're doing your whatever, your crazy criming, and there's a good chance that you won't get caught, that's just one more reason. There's one more percentage of why you just go out and do your thing that's against the law, right? That's kind of the way I see it. There isn't that deterrent of, all right, we've got enough police officers on the ground. If I get busted, this is going to suck. Maybe I'm on my second or my third, felony arrest or felony conviction. This isn't going to go down well. But if I know I'm going to be able to get away with it, Maybe I just keep doing it because I'm a criminal and that's what criminals do. Politicians here also undoubtedly noticed that defund the police didn't sell well with voters in New York City's recent Democratic mayoral primary. Is it selling well anywhere? I don't think so. In fact, politicians who are downplaying the fact, AOC recently said, don't believe the hysteria. Don't get hysterical about the crime rates. Hysteria, it's not hysteria, it's fact. I mean, this stuff is not going in the direction it should be. So Randall is little known in Seattle, and it's a stretch that he would advance in the August primary. His political experience consists of running for mayor and a county commission seat in Georgia in the early 2000s and losing both times. But others also seem emboldened that defund the police has lost its punch. Here's an example. They were asked whether it was time to start running special emphasis police patrols to try to get a handle on street crime downtown. 4 candidates said yes. Randall, former deputy mayor Casey Sixkiller, former city council president Bruce Harrell, and businessman Art Langley. All right, so you got 4 of them, and they said, yeah, probably. Look, we're down 300 cops, over 20% of the Seattle Police Department workforce, Sixkiller said. People no longer feel safe. It is damaging the reputation of downtown Seattle, and it's sending a message to visitors and tourists and businesses alike that we can't fix it. And yet on the national level, we've got political leaders saying, it's hysteria. Don't buy into the hysteria. And you've got somebody like Lori Lightfoot in Chicago. Well, yeah, but we got 200 businesses moving in here. So we feel confident that Chicago is a safe place. And then you read the stories and you're like, holy cow, who is ever going to go visit the South Side of Chicago? Nobody. Only current city council president M. Lorena Gonzalez and former chief Seattle club director Colleen Echohawk said a definite no to police emphasis patrols, urging more social and cultural investments instead because we know how well those are working. Yeah, send out a social worker instead of a cop, unarmed social worker. Let's go down that route. And we know that we need to put some more money into social and cultural investments. All right, that's a given, but that's not going to quell the crime. That's not going to do it. And yet this is literally how we get to a place where crime is going up. And we're all sitting around going, how do we get here? I don't understand. What's going on? Yeah, these stats can't be right. Is this right? Can somebody do a fact check for me? Can somebody do a fact? Because man, this doesn't look good. These stats aren't going in the right direction. Therefore, we should do some more social and cultural investment instead. It literally feels like that's the way it's going, right? It's the stuff you're hearing. One candidate who still does want to defund the police by at least 50%, Andrew Grant Houston, wasn't at the Tuesday forum. He couldn't make it. His alarm didn't go off, and he decided, you know what, I got to walk the dog instead, and I got something else to do. I don't know. What's unclear is which way Seattle voters lean today. Do you want more cops or fewer? That's the question of the hour. I drive around Seattle, and I see people with defund the police on their, signs in their house, and I'm thinking, seriously? You're seriously going to have that posted, defund the police? And you live in a pretty sketchy little area here. What are you thinking? It will be interesting to watch as there are clear advocates for defunding or even abolishing the police who are running in 3 out of Seattle's 4 citywide races. Houston in mayor's race, Nikita Oliver in the position 9 city council race, and Nicole Thomas Kennedy in the city attorney's race. Would you vote for somebody? Well, people in Seattle would. Defund the police? We're still on board. Yeah. I mean, that's a political ideology that we can get behind, and that makes a lot of sense. And to me, it's just like, what are you thinking? Where did you, come up with this? I understand how you came up with this, but did you really think that without having some kind of program or process for in the meantime, when you defund the police and you got less cops on the ground, you got to have something that's known to work that's going to help out with the rising crime. And yet, we don't ever really seem to think about that. We just seem to think, well, let's pump some money into social and cultural investments instead. And let's see how that goes. Well, we're watching how it's going right now, and it's not good. And it's across the entire nation. This isn't just a Seattle and a Portland thing, right? This is a nationwide deal. And it kind of feels like defunding the police is a has-been idea that we've explored, we've reimagined, we've rethought, and it's probably a hard no-go. How those three candidates fare will go a long way to writing the next chapter in this police and crime story. Ballots are mailed out in 2 weeks. Now, here's the thing about Seattle. They elected these officials that want to defund the police. They're kind of on board with some of this stuff. Not kind of. They are on board. So in a city like Seattle, there are districts where people are like, defunding the police, it's a good idea. We should do it. And the rest of us are like, okay, yeah, social experiment 169, 171. Here we go. Let's see how this one goes. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, not well. But this is kind of where we're at, right? And for those of us who, when you first heard the whole defund the police, you're like, I'm sorry, what? Excuse me? You want to defund the police? Okay. You know what? If you want to do that in your town, you go for it, and I'll watch from afar over here in my town. Let's just see how this goes before, we go any further here. And I'd actually, in my city, I'd rather have more police. Not because I'm, in love with blue, but because I think it, when you have law and order, that's when things just kind of work a little bit better. But that's my world. It's not necessarily everybody else's world, and it's not necessarily everybody else's opinion and or direction that they see things heading in. So got to have lots of different opinions, because otherwise the world would be really vanilla and boring. But I'm a hard no-go on defund the police. Some of these candidates are as well. It's kind of a storyline with rising crime rates that is to me is questionable at best. Because you become elected, and you got elected on your defund the police thing, and then you can't figure out how to bring crime down. How is that going to make you look as a politician? Not good. But some of these folks, they just don't seem to care, and I don't know how they get elected to office, but they do, and they stay in office, and it's shocking to me. But these are the kind of voters we have in Seattle and kind of voters we have in Portland. What's it going to take for them to kind of recognize reality and understand maybe some of these nut job concepts they're not really taking us in the right direction? I don't know. It's crazy. In the meantime, I'm going to keep podcasting on them right here in the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. If you so see fit, love to have you hit the subscription button. Hit the like button for this video. Share the content in the audio platform, the podcast platform. Just share it out there. It's the best thing you can do for me. Thanks again for being here. Thanks again for being part of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. I will catch up with you on the next one. Until then, stay safe. We'll see you soon. Bye for now. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.